Simone.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Ambassador Lecture organized by ASEAN Study Center at Faculty of Social and Political Science, Universitas Gadjah Mada. My name is Fadila Rahma and I'm a program officer. I will be here today as the master of ceremony for today's event. Thank you very much for attending for today's event. Our topic today is the role of the ASEAN youth in promoting peace. And we have our special guest today as our main speaker, Your Excellency Ambassador Gusti Agung Wesaka Puja, the Executive Director from ASEAN Institute for Peace and Reconciliations, AIPR. Welcome, Your Excellency. We are very glad that you are here with us today.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Before we start, I would like to inform to all the participants of today's webinar, if you have any questions that you want to address, you can send it directly to the comment sections in our Facebooks and YouTube live streams. And don't forget to mention your name and where you're from. All right, to start our ambassador lectures, I would like to welcome Tunggul Wicaksona that will lead us to the introductions of our main guest speaker and also will bridge of our discussion today. Tunggul is a research officer at the ASEAN Study Center, Universitas Gadjah Mada. He received a Master of Arts in International Relations degree in 2019. During his career as a researcher, he also works under the National Center for Research on Europe, University of Canterbury, to represent Indonesia, together with his academic partners from China, Japan, and South Korea. His recent book chapters, which entitled Reducing the Misery of Poverty by Strengthening Sustainable Agriculture and Food Security, Governments and People's Initiative in Indonesia, will be published by the network of ASEAN-China think tanks this year. So without further ado, Mas Tunggul, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Fadila. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us here for today's webinar. This event is brought to you by ASEAN Study Center. The center is responsible to provide you a critical and objective assessment on various prominent issues surrounding ASEAN. The tagline of Bringing ASEAN Closer to You is the center's endeavor to bridge the ideas, spirit, and programs of ASEAN for the benefits of science development and policy formulation in Indonesia. You can follow up our social media in Instagram at AAC UGM, Facebook at ASEAN Study Center UGM, or visit our website at aac.visipol.ugm.ac.id. My name is Tunggul Wicaksona and I am the research manager in the ASEAN Study Center. Today, we are presenting an interesting topic, the role of ASEAN youth in promoting peace. It will be presented by our honorable speaker, His Excellency Ambassador I Gusti Agung Wesaka Puja. At this point, I would like to introduce our featured speaker so we can get into our content. Our guest is Ambassador Puja. He is currently the Executive Director of ASEAN Institute for Peace and Reconciliation, or ASEAN IPR. Previously, he was Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia to the Kingdom of Netherlands and a permanent representative to the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, or OPCW, from February 2016 to June 2020. He was an ASEAN SOM leader Indonesia, or Director General for ASEAN Cooperation, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and also served as High-Level Task Force Indonesia on ASEAN Community Post 2015 Vision. He also served as Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Indonesia to Republic of Austria and Republic of Slovenia, concurrently to the Permanent Representative to the United Nations and other international organizations in Vienna from March 2010 until 2012. In 2006 until 2009, he served as Ambassador or Deputy Permanent Representative of Indonesia to the United Nations, World Trade Organization, and other international organizations in Geneva. In addition to the above assignments, Ambassador Puja also served as a Vice Chairperson of the Conference of State Parties, or CSP, Chemical Weapons Convention, or CWC, in 2017 until 2018. Governor of Indonesia to the International Atomic Energy Agency, Board of Governors in 2011 to 2012, Indonesian Sherpa for the Nuclear Security Summit 2012, President of the Intergovernment Committee on Intellectual Property and Genetic Resources, Traditional Knowledge and Folklore, World Intellectual Property Organization, and a member of Indonesian negotiators for the Aceh Peace Agreement in 2000 until 2005. Ambassador Puja has been granted, among others, Ridder Gwakrus in the Order van Oranje Nassau, or Knight Grand Cross of the Order of Orange Nassau, the King of the Netherlands in June 2020. Ksatria Bhakti Husada Arutala by Minister of Health in 2011, Bintang Jasa Utama Award in 2010, and the Dharma Nusa Award in 2006. Ambassador Puja is a graduate from Gajah Mada University, Yogyakarta, Indonesia, and acquired his postgraduate at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, United States of America, the Horace H. Racham School of Graduate Studies. He is married with 2 children. Okay, audience, just a little housekeeping before we get started. We really would like to hear from you and would like to input your voice in the conversation. So if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the YouTube comment section. I'll bring them up during the presentation and we will also have time for questions at the end. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to Mr. Puja to present or highlight the subject matter on how do ASEAN Institute for Peace and Reconciliation, or ASEAN IPR, works as a platform for all stakeholders to voice their interests and aspirations, especially from youth generation, in contributing to the ASEAN community building process. His Excellency Puja, you may take the floor.
A very good morning to everybody. It is indeed my great pleasure and privilege to be with you, not because I am part of the University of Gajah Mada, as I graduated from the Faculty of Social and Political Science, but also because many years ago that we established together with colleague from the Gajah Mada University to establish the ASEAN Study Center in Gajah Mada University. It is certainly, I'm so proud to be with you again this very special and bright day in the morning. Well, before proceeding, let me ask you, what do you have in your mind when you think about peace? Well, probably some of you look at our emblem, the hyper emblem, this dove with olive leaves, and also how we construct peace in our mind. Of course, can we start now the presentation? Yes, this is the emblem of the logo of the ASEAN Institute for Peace and Reconciliation, but also this is very much similar to what probably you think about peace. Look at this dove with olive branches flying over the rainbow, but suddenly this is not we are thinking about peace. Or if you listen Jose Carrera singing Kuyamba, my Lord, Kumbaya, my Lord, this is not what you think probably about peace. But let me share with you some of my personal perception about peace. Well, it was in 2003, right after the government of Indonesia and Gerakan Aceh Merdeka GAM signed the cessation of hostilities agreement in Geneva on the 9th of December 2002. So I was asked to visit Aceh, and I live with two of my colleagues because I was part of the Indonesian negotiators dealing with Aceh peace. I was sent to jungle in Aceh for 10 days just to measure how peace has been or had been constructed or established right after the signing of the cessation of hostilities agreement in December 2002. I lived there for 10 days in the jungle whenever and wherever we live or wherever we reach some place and the dark, we live there. And I learned a lot how actually agreement give or not give a particular impact to the peace on the ground. Well, I observe actually the very tense situation on the ground because that time in 2002 and 2003, the conflict situation in Aceh is still very high and still very terrifying indeed. I learned a lot actually how genuine peace is still far, far away, even though after the signing of the cessation of hostilities agreement at that time. You see, peace and sustainable peace cannot be taken for granted when people hungry, when people have no job, when people live in fear. Peace cannot be implemented. Peace cannot be examined. Peace cannot be constructed. Well, of course, peace is not only about serenity situation or meditation. Peace actually very much linked with how people live in dignity. That's actually the message that I would like to share with you today. Because what actually was lacking actually during my visit for 10 days in 2003, somewhere in the jungle in Aceh from Banda Aceh to Singkil. So there was lack of trust and confidence that time. So peace will be very much linked with how concerned parties can build trust and confidence. So live together in peace and move forward to bring more prosperity to their people. So, colleagues, friends, this year has been a year where we have to get used to many adjustments, find new and innovative ways to continue our lives, our work, and our goals. In this regard, history has shown again and again that the youth, like many of you participating this morning, is at the epicenter as one of those deeply affected, but at the same time have shown to lead with creativity and innovation. The youth has shown its strength and resilience through difficult and challenging times to break boundaries, to give way to new ideas. Therefore, other than the lecture, I really look forward to having exchanges with you all. Now, I have the pleasure to share some of my thoughts and experiences on how the ASEAN Institute for Peace and Reconciliation can provide a platform for all of you to participate in promoting a culture of peace and build peace for the benefit of ASEAN and the prosperity of its peoples. And I would like also to take this opportunity to find out how this kind of event can create impact to all of us. As you are fully aware, friends, colleagues, on the ASEAN regional peace and security, since the ASEAN inception in 1967, exactly when the Bangkok Declaration was signed on August 8, 1967, ASEAN devoted itself to the pursuit of peace. ASEAN has been at the crossroads of history several times in the past. Remember that ASEAN was created in the middle of mistrust of each of member states. That's why our founding fathers, you look at from this picture, they determined to bring peace and stability in the region when our founding fathers on the 8th of August 1967 signed this Bangkok Declaration. You saw it from the ASEAN Charter, the Article 1. It is clearly mentioned that ASEAN is to maintain and enhance peace, security, and stability, and further strengthen peace-oriented values in the region. This is actually what we are aiming for and look for the future. And certainly youth shall play a role in maintaining peace and security in our regions. So the making of ASEAN, the journey of ASEAN is actually a successful story of peace building in itself. And repairing trust deficit is considered as the biggest challenge for the post-conflict peace building in ASEAN. During the past 53 years, ASEAN has secured continuous peace and stability in the region. We can see that no significant military conflicts happen between countries of ASEAN in some decades before. On the other hand, some internal conflicts once ravaging in certain ASEAN countries were settled peacefully, and some border disputes resolved through negotiations. Trust and confidence must be built and nurtured, and I believe we share all this motto to all of us and to our younger generation. As a result, peace has allowed ASEAN countries to achieve remarkable progress in their economic development and elevated millions of their peoples out of poverty. Architecture of ASEAN actually strikes a delicate balance between different and sometimes opposing concerns. The opposing concern between defense deterrence versus confidence building, between idealism and realism, between institutional approach versus bilateral solution. And as an organization itself, ASEAN has also developed into one whose role is recognized by the international community as the driving force of many initiatives. ASEAN has provided platforms for dialogue and cooperation for regional and major powers and a wide range of issues from political, economic, socio-cultural to defense. Today, ASEAN has further developed as a more integrated and rules-based organization from where it started. It has managed to transform itself from an association of states to a community of nations with its three pillars: political and security community, economic community, and socio-cultural community. Colleagues, what the challenges in maintaining peace and security and the role of youth? This is actually what the achievement made by ASEAN in the past. Well, when we look at the youth, of course, what we are expecting, they look at in the future the challenges. Building and maintaining a peaceful and prosperous community is not without its challenges. Security challenges posed by all issues, such as unresolved border issues and internal conflicts, which is actually still persists in our region, even more so now, what is called the contemporary security challenges, which includes radicalization and violent extremism, terrorism, trafficking in persons, drug trafficking, ethno-religious discord, climate change, and even intense geopolitical rivalries. And those all surface as potential disrupt to the security and stability in our region and to ASEAN as an organization. And given the increasing complexity of the challenges and contemporary threat that ASEAN is facing, it is not only for the governments or Track 1 institutions to be the only actor in this endeavor. You all should involve in this process. And as any process, it is paramount to ensure not only the inclusivity, but also participation and engagement of all related stakeholders from the grassroots to the policy-making level. And how youth of ASEAN play the role in this respect. And this is where the youth of ASEAN enter the picture of peace. You are fully aware that with 333 million ASEAN people under the age of 15 to 35 years old out of 625 million of ASEAN population. This bloc has a significant number of young people, which consists of 61% of the total ASEAN population. This is according to the World Economic Forum. Colleague, it is my belief that peace building is only sustainable if embraces core principles of conflict prevention. The youth, acting as peace builders, can play an important role in preventing conflict. youth will need to show their stewardship skills. Youth can be as active agents in peace building process. In ASEAN context, we have seen an abundant example of how youth is actively engaged in economic and cultural discourses that contributes to social development. The engagement and contribution of the youth in the discourse of peace is as equally vital as other stakeholders, if not more. As the next generation, the youth would have a leading role as peace builders and bring the ASEAN community forwards towards sustainable peace. Contemporary challenges in the region poses a demand that ASEAN should maintain lasting peace and stability through, among others, promotion of culture of peace and dialogue, taking initiatives in conflict prevention, conflict resolution, and reconciliation. But just as important, the next question would be, how can we share the youth engagement in peace building? And also, what kind of role can the youth of ASEAN contribute to the building and maintaining of a peaceful and prosperous ASEAN community? This, it is in my view where the ASEAN Institute of Peace and Reconciliation has an important role to play. Let's see what is the role of the ASEAN Institute for Peace and Reconciliation. The ASEAN Institute for Peace and Reconciliation, or more widely known as ASEAN IPR, was established by the leaders of ASEAN in 2012 and is functioning under an action line of the ASEAN Political Security Community Blueprint 2009-2015 to further consolidate the community building process as strengthening research activities on peace, conflict management, and conflict resolution. ASEAN IPR, be the soft engines, is what we would like to do, connecting stakeholders, and also as aspiration to build trust and confidence. The ASEAN IPR is mandated to be ASEAN institution for research activities on peace, conflict resolution, reconciliation, and post-conflict peace building. In dealing with these issues, the Institute is given the flexibility to reach out and collaborate with all stakeholders, including government institutions, academic institutions, civil society groups, and of course, women and youth. To fulfill such mandate, the Institute is given 5 functions: research, capacity building, pool of experts, and support for ASEAN bodies, networking, and last but not least, dissemination of information. Of the 5 functions, I would like to highlight 2, which is most relevant to our discussion this morning. The first is capacity building to promote understanding amongst diverse societies, promote the voice of moderation and advance work in the area of interfaith dialogue. Secondly, is the function as a knowledge hub by establishing network with relevant institutions with objectives aimed at promoting culture of peace. And what I would like to also underline from such functions is the Institute is attract 1.5 platforms in its work and activities that could serve in building capacity and increase involvement of the youth in ASEAN, to promote dialogue, understanding, tolerance, and the long-run sustainable peace. And following the completion of APSC Blueprint 2009-2015, ASEAN adopted the APSC Blueprint 2025, continuing the community building process for the region. The ASEAN IPR is assigned to implement 10 action lines within the APSC Blueprint. Thus, within the regional architecture, the Institute functioning as an important tool in achieving the targets and goals laid out in the APSC Blueprint 2025. And how ASEAN IPR and youth inclusively in peace building role. Allow me to highlight some activities that the Institute have carried out in the past, which has provided a platform for inclusive participation in peace building, especially among the youth. In 2018, the ASEAN IPR had a regional youth conference on peace and tolerance, with the theme Building Unity and Common Understanding in Countering Intolerance and Violent Extremism. You see how happy their faces are when they can share their views on this theme. One of the outcomes of the conference was the ASEAN Youth Declaration on Peace and Tolerance that set about a foundation for youth to take part and contribute in the promotion of peace and tolerance by creating and promoting narratives of peace, tolerance, and pluralism through various platforms such as art, creative industry, and information and communication technology, including social media. Therefore, ensure the sustainable and inclusive development of its peoples as part of the ASEAN community building process. Another activity which we had held very recently is a webinar highlighting the empowerment of women and youth in building sustainable peace. Amongst those which was highlighted during the discussion is how dialogues can foster not only understanding and tolerance, but also embrace diversity amongst different groups in the framework of building sustainable peace. It is acknowledged how youth groups are often sidelined by the elders due to perception of behavior. However, it is also recognized the importance of youth groups to build a strong connection between competencies, skills, and willingness to be agents of change. Well, now I come to the latest part of my presentations. Through the ASEAN IPR, as reflected in the aforementioned activities, ASEAN reaffirms its commitment to ensure the youth participation in the design and implementation of solutions for building sustainable peace. Well, the ASEAN Institute for Peace and Reconciliation will hopefully grow not only as a, but as the platform and hub of ASEAN. Many stakeholders, including the youth groups, to collaborate on relevant issues related to peace process. Following up from the Youth Declaration, the ASEAN IPR endeavors to further explore means for the youth in utilizing information and communication technology as tools to spread culture of peace, with, of course, their immense energy of the youth and their ability to adapt new technology. The youth can be prepared as mediators, as community mobilizers, as humanitarian workers, and also as peace brokers. ICT has become part of our daily routines now. Statistics show that in 2019, more than 61% of internet users in ASEAN comes from the youth. This year, the ongoing pandemic has more than ever significantly shifted most of our social interactions with the rest of the world virtually through the use of ICT. Colleagues, of course, ICT has become somewhat a double-edged sword. On one hand, we see how ICT is being used to spread intolerance, hatred, radicalism, and in extreme cases, recruitment by extremist groups. But on the other hand, we also see potentials for information and communication technology to be used to convey the positive narratives on diversity and spread tolerance, as well as promote culture of peace. Now, for closing, and following my presentations, I would like to conclude by giving you all some food of thought and hopefully get some feedback from you in our discussion session. First, what do you think is the most urgent agenda related to peace in ASEAN that should be taken on board or even spearheaded by the youth? Second, what should be done in enhancing the role of youth in countering intolerance, radicalism, and violent extremism? Third, how can ICT be used as a tool for youth in this context? Dear colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen, many say that peace is not just the absence of conflict or war. For us and for you all, it is about action. Peace is not a myth. So in this respect, moral arguments are not enough. We need concrete solutions with you, younger ASEAN generations, who we consider as a visionary generations. You can contribute to our common endeavor. Thank you so much for participating in this lecture. All the best to all of you.
Okay, wonderful presentation, Ambassador Puja. And before we enter the questions and answer session, Mr. Puja, I am wondering about the role of ASEAN IPR in promoting knowledge and sharing and policy recommendation. The fact that since the youth has become a crucial part in the community building process in ASEAN, how does inclusivity take part in the policymaking process, and how to engage the so-called millennial generation and a grassroots community into high politic matters? What do you say about it?
Well, it is now or never. Youth will be our leaders. Youth will be our future leaders who will bear the responsibility in whatever political process and decision-making process in the future. So, as I said, it is now or never. So, if you do not join now, so you will lose the wagon. So, it is said that if you are not on the table, you will be on the menu. So, please join us in this endeavor. Bring whatever you feel that you can contribute to the positive peace in this respect. It is very, very important. Indeed. We are dealing with more than 380 million of youth in our regions. So you are our future. So we rely on you to join us in this endeavor to promote peace, and in particular, how all of us to build culture of peace in this respect.
Okay. That was a very insightful information from you, Ambassador Puja. Thank you. And we will go ahead to take some time for a question and answer for now. A friendly reminder to audiences, please be sure to type your questions into the questions box in your YouTube comment section, and I will choose some of them to be viewed in this discussion. It looks like that we have a few questions. The first question is coming from Dias Kurniawan. The question is, we often see that youth are always at the forefront of change. In Indonesia, youth have taken to the streets to criticize policies and express their aspiration. Youth in Thailand are doing the same thing, but youths are also often labeled as troublemakers because of their demonstrations. This seems to contradict how youth are agents of peace. How does the ASEAN IPR see this? Your answers, Ambassador Puja.
Well, look at the role of youth. Well, of course, there are two sides of their faces. In a positive aspect, and of course, on the other aspect is their dynamics, their lot of energy in trying to show their existence in this respect. Well, whatever your energy, the energy that you have abundance of energy in this respect, trying to channel all those energies to a more positive. Well, in democratic life, channeling those energy, I believe, will be very, very fruitful. Not only the energy you spread on the street, but also the energy that you can share when you are sitting, when you have communication, when you have a dialogue with those parties concerned, especially with the government. That's the positive energy that you can channel to bring betterment to our future. And the most important is how those energy can be channeled and contributed to the building of culture of peace in our region. So that's my respond.
Okay. I do agree with your answer that a meaningful participation from youth generation must be followed by a positive attitude by channeling them into a positive attitude in creating peace or to foster the peace culture. Thank you, Mr. Puja. Here comes the second question from Fadilah Ristianti. The question is, do you think it is possible to integrate the peace and community building process learning in our education materials since the early school? And the same questions. Okay, this is the same questions. Is your answer, Mr. Puja, please?
Well, certainly, positive peace cannot only be channeled through a proper institutions, but also in establishing or building culture of peace. It should be learned from very early age. In this respect, what I would like to dream and to have it is this peace curriculum could be integrated in the formal curriculum in education. So I hope we can work out on this, giving a module or providing a module for peace to the students from the preliminary or elementary schools to the university. That's what some countries actually are preparing for the curriculum and module for peace for their children and for their students. That's one aspect and one way to create a culture of peace, because culture of peace cannot just come out of the blue suddenly brought to the people. It should be built step by step, a building block approach from the early age. That's why when we talk about youth, so I mentioned 330 million of youth in ASEAN from 15 years to 35 years. So 15 years old actually is a very ideal age to learn and participate in the peace culture. But of course, the knowledge of peace through folklore, for example, can be taught from the very early, from the beginning of the age. I think in our society in ASEAN, there are many folklores on peace when those ideals can be taught or can be transferred to our younger generation.
Thank you for your answers, Mr. Puja. The third question in regards to build a peace culture, does the AIPR have a strategy or a legal framework to combat this problem in ASEAN region? This question is coming from Davindra Fadlur Rahman.
Well, legal framework, of course, should be developed within the ASEAN institution itself. Of course, when we talk about ASEAN as a rule-based organization, it has been everything with regard to peace has been transpired on those ASEAN documents, from the ASEAN Charter to the blueprints that has been established and produced by the ASEAN leaders. That's the legal framework that has been set up by our leaders in this respect. And IPER, in this respect, follow what actually the concern, whatever the projects, whatever the guidance given by our leaders to be follow up based on those legal framework as set up and established by our leaders. And of course, for us, we would like to act something in real, closer to our community, engage our community, and spread all the positive energy with regard to the peace culture. But don't forget that IPOR has been given mandate, a very clear, crystal clear task of 5 mandates, including research, capacity building, socialization, pool of expertise, etc. This the corridor that given to the ASEAN Institute for Peace and Reconciliation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Puja. The next question is coming from Johanna Emanuela. How do you see the role of ASEAN youth in bridging the generation gap exists these days? Youth are the agent of change, but a lot of times, older generation don't really support us in doing so. What is your opinion about it, Mr. Puja?
Well, if you have gap, so this what actually we are doing. We need to build a bridge, bridging those gap in this moment. Of course, is very, very important because youth has their own way of thinking, and the older generation also they have their own way of thinking. Now, bridging the gap is very, very vital. And what we would like to share in this respect is how we improve the level of communications, dialogue between those two generations. So there should be no misunderstanding, there should be no misconstrued or whatsoever with regard to the perception of peace, with the perception of what we are would like to achieve in the future with regard to the peace building and culture of peace. Of course, this is not something easy that we can do, but of course, we have the confidence that we can do it. You can develop, of course, the way of communications between the younger generation and the older generations. This is something that we can share, the common and mutual share that we can achieve in the future together. And university in this respect, and I believe the ASEAN Study Center also can play this role in creating a bridge for these endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Puja. It looks like we have covered all of our questions. Thank you, Edwin, for the questions. Mr. Puja, is there anything else you want to cover before I wrap up? May we ask for your closing statement, please?
Well, this is something that we would like to share with you, dear colleagues, in your particular role as youth and how you can contribute to your future. The future actually belongs to you. We are older generations is fading away, and we would like to transfer the baton of the responsibility for the future to you. And if you remember what Isaac Newton said, if you want to see farther than others, you have to step on the shoulders of giant. So you don't need only become a giant, but you have to step on the shoulders of giants, so you can see even farther, even further than others. That's, I believe, the spirit of looking forward, the spirit of moving forward, and the spirit of having joining together in this endeavor. Because this is not only doing by individual of you, but we have to be together. Because if you want to go fast, you walk alone. But if you want to walk far, you have to walk together. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Puja, for the meaningful and engaging talks in enduring and endeavoring peace. Now, I would like to highlight some essential parts of our discussion today. To sum up, there are multiple dimensions on the role of ASEAN IPR as the regional institution and how youth can boost the peace on the region, as well as to provide an explanation about ASEAN IPR and the contribution of youth to promote, disseminate, and participate peace on the Asian region. The first of all, in this discussion, one may ask, what is peace actually? Peace is not an absence of the conflict or war. It is about a visionary action to form a genuine peace. And a genuine peace is a long way to go, and a sustainable peace cannot be taken for granted. Peace is not only about serenity situation, and moreover, it links to how to raise people's dignity. Second, since the formation of ASEAN in 1967, ASEAN has been pursuing peace in order to bring regional stability. Enhancing peace and security are the essential key that needs to be taken into account. Peace building effort must be followed by a building trust between parties. Hence, ASEAN has created a platform, a rule-based organization to foster the making of peace. Lesson learned from Aceh Peace Proposal. Concerned parties can build trust and confidence and live together, collaborate, and move forward to better situation. The last, achieving peace is not without challenges. Participation of all related stakeholders became main concern, especially the youth generation. In this respect, more than 383 million young people, which consists of 61% of ASEAN population, are responsible to take part as an active agent in peace building process. In ASEAN context, youth is equally vital with stakeholders. Youth can easily engage in social and cultural sector through promoting and opening discourses. In this sense, AIPR is mandated to these functions: research, pool of experts, capacity building, networking or knowledge hub, and disseminate information. In order to fulfill these mandates, AIPR has continuing to implement blueprint within regional architecture. Youth meaningful participation is one element to contribute the culture of peace through media such as arts and communication technology, including social media. The fact that youth immense ability to easily adapt with a new change has become fundamental reason to include them in the movement. That is all the time we have for our webinar today. Thank you, Mr. Puja. I would like to say thank you. Yes, thank you for a very insightful discussion today. The topic was timely and you presented the material on the new innovation in a way that everyone could understand. And I personally gained more understanding now than I did before from your presentation. Thank you for your valuable experience. Thank you also for ASEAN Studies Center staff who initiated, managed, and helped to arrange this event. On behalf of Mr. Puja, as well as the team of ASEAN Studies Center, thank you audiences for joining us and taking time to view our webinar. We appreciate you being here. My name is Tunggu Wicaksono. Have a great day and we will see you next time. Fadila, you may take the floor.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mas Tunggu, for moderating the sessions. And also thank you very much again for the very insightful discussions, Your Excellency, Ambassador Igusti Agung Wisaka Puja. I'm sure there are a lot of key takeaways that we can learn from today's discussions. So for all the participants, thank you so much for also tuning in. Please stay tuned at our social media for our future discussions. And don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel at ASEAN Study Center Universitas Gadjah Mada and our Instagram at ASCUGM and our official website. You can free to click on the asc.visipol.ugm.ac.id because there will be more events to come in the futures. So once again, I hope you are all stay safe and healthy, and see you in the next event. Goodbye and have a great day.